place to promote the growth of Tigres in English through analysis, discussions, interviews, and more. Welcome to the La U Times podcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the La U Times podcast. Pretty excited to check back in with you guys after a disappointment exit from the League's Cup. Lots to talk about today, but checking in from the DFW area. Dennis, our producer, how we doing today, brother?
It's hot. It's been 107 like all week here, so staying inside and probably running my electricity bill like, $500, but pretty good regardless.
Any sponsorship deals you worked on? Who are we sponsored by today?
I'll think of one for later. Well, actually, you know what? Texas Roadhouse, sponsor us. I don't know why I have this. This is from the Miami trip with my friends from the hotel. So there you go.
Bread rolls are undefeated there.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Checking in also as well from Arlington, Edgar from Double O Nation. How we doing, bro?
Doing good, guys. Pleasure to be here with you as always. Very hot. I mean, I'm only a couple miles away from Dennis, but it's been very hot these past couple days.
Yeah, I feel that AC's been working hard on my house as well. And lastly, Tigres takes Alfred. How we doing, brother?
Great. Dennis mentioned the electricity bill, man. I miss Nashville electricity bills, man. They're so high here, bro.
Yeah, bro. We're on a heat advisory. Like, I think yesterday it started, and it's going to continue for the next couple of days. It was hot. I got off today from my truck, and I can feel the heat blaring on my skin. So it's hot in Texas for sure. So if you're listening to us and from the Texas area, we feel your pain. And we know what you're going through. Fellas, we're missing our boy Lou. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to join us tonight, but our thoughts are with him as he has a family thing that he has to attend to. But ultimately, we'll start off with what began as a very exciting tournament run, a really promising start to what we thought could secure us some hardware under our new head coach, Paunovic, and the League's Cup. We, like I said, promising start, but ultimately got eliminated by New York City FC, or is that correct? Yes. MLS team. Yes. And 2-1 loss. Very disappointing, especially more so with the performance from our club. But I think Paunovic had a lot to do with that. We won't spend too much time on it as it's now news from a week ago, and we have lots of different things to talk about tonight as we move forward and, talk about everything surrounding the team. We'll start off with just overall impressions and thoughts about the NYFC game. Alfred, 2-1 loss, Paunovic mistakes.
Well, first of all, we'll go back to what we talked about last week. And, when we were talking predictions and, talking about whether we expected to win or lose this game, I said it. It was going to be embarrassing if we lost to this team. And to be honest, it was. We also talked about key players that we thought maybe should have sat out, like Angulo, like Carioca. And they ended up being the two players that cost us our goals. Ultimately, like some people were saying, the game wasn't won yet. You needed to have them in there, but who knows? I mean, a lot of times this, having a yellow or just lacking one yellow for you to be suspended the following game, it could play, something in your head where you're not making the right decisions in the game. For some reason, Angulo, instead of, just kicking the ball straight up, he decided to play around with it right outside the box. Carioca, in the same sense, trying to hurry up the game and loses the ball. Just silly mistakes, man. Just these mistakes that, that in the past, same things have happened to us, where we're clearly the better team because we were. And not saying that we deserved it, because obviously New York City FC, they played their game, and they definitely played to our mistakes. But if those mistakes don't happen, and if up front, some of the chances, some of the opportunities that were created, would have been scored. I mean, we would have had another pot on Friday. Who knows? But just a disappointing loss, and just wish that things had gone differently. Unfortunately for Pablo, go ahead and say it. 0 for 2 on titles. So he missed out on the Super Champions Cup or whatever it was called against America, and now the Leagues Cup. So for the semester, all he has is the league title, and since everything else is out of it, there's not going to be any other distractions. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to go back to the mistakes part about the players that you mentioned. It's really disappointing when going back to that play, Diego Reyes makes an excellent slide tackle to prevent the ball from moving forward on that through ball. And Angulo just gets, out of position, and it just throws. And, Diego Reyes was truly upset after the goal because he knows that he did his job. And Angulo, and I'm not saying Angulo's action should be justified. And I think it's more of a repeated things that the Tigres has been accustomed through is playing out of the back, and sometimes highly criticized by us as a fan base that, yes, it's great to play out of the back, but sometimes you got to skip that. So it's unfortunate because Diego Reyes was excellent and has been excellent throughout this run from the league to the Leagues Cup. And that mistake by Angulo cost, possibly the game because it dictated the pace to be played a little bit different than the rest of the half. So just want to make sure and clarify because I saw some people, hinting that it was also Diego Reyes' fault. But to me, I felt like Diego Reyes did what he was supposed to do. So, Dennis, impressions about the elimination of Tigres and then as well as the tournament run that we were on, beginning with the Puebla and then Inter Miami to Pachuca game.
I think it's frustrating because it's just a clear difference in those three games. And then that last one, like from just a mentality and like performance standpoint, because even in all the games that we went to, all three of them in Texas, which maybe that's why we lost, is that we couldn't go to New York.
We weren't there. Yeah.
Exactly. But we were at least able to see, especially live, like there's good things happening here. And like the players are like fighting and there wasn't really like any sort of let up. I didn't feel that same way last week. Second half, we were still creating chances and whatnot. But especially once that second goal happened, it just kind of felt like it wasn't meant to be. I always get really sick feelings in my stomach when I'm watching a game, whether it's Tigres or Liverpool or El Tri or whoever. And I know when a game is lost. And I immediately had that sick feeling when that second goal for New York went. And I just knew we're done. This is just not going to go well. And obviously I didn't want that to happen, but it happened. And hindsight is 2020, but now look at it a week later. It's the semifinals of Leagues Cup tomorrow, and nobody from our league is in it, right?
Embarrassing.
Which is embarrassing. And think about what could have been had we won that game, setting up a potential game versus Columbus, and how exciting that would have been. And had you gone past that, you're the favorite of the 4 teams that are still in there. If you replace Columbus with us, we're the favorite, So it's really frustrating that yes, I know it's Copa Molero and whatnot, but this is a trophy, right? The players cared about it. Angulo said he cared about it, that the team cared about it, which is ironic because he ended up costing us the game. I feel like if that doesn't happen, the game is completely different, and that's a pretty crappy mistake that anybody should not be making. You can't do that as a professional. He's been in the league long enough. He's been on our team long enough that you have to limit those mistakes, especially against a team that is inferior than you. New York played well, but they're not a better team than us. They just played better than us last week. Let's not get it twisted here. And Angulo has to take, I think, most of the blame. I know Carioca gets some of the blame too, but I think if anybody's going to point a finger, it's at Angulo because that doesn't happen. I don't think we we lose. Truthfully.
Yeah, agreed. Edgar, lineup changes that happen in that game, and Paunovic decides to play Vigon at the attacking mid position, leaving Brunetta on the bench. And we talked about, in last week's pod episode as we were previewing that game, where we were talking about Carioca possibly maybe being sat out and in place of Vigon, but we get all three of them in the middle of the field, and NYFC just runs all over us with high intensity, high pressure. Doesn't really allow us to play any possession that was truly meaningful, and if we did, it was very disruptive at all times. So, what was your thoughts on the lineup choices that Paunovic had, especially leaving Gignac on the bench for that long and bringing him on super late? And we know that rotations were happening. So, thoughts on that, and as well as your thoughts on the elimination against NYFC.
So obviously, when you're playing a knockout match, I think you have to go out with your best 11 at all times. You can't try to experiment. You can't try to save players. I know we had a discussion about, does Carioca start? Does he not start? We see that he gets to start despite the fact that he, was going to miss out the next round. I was all in for that. But then you see Gignac on the bench. You see Vigon in the starting lineup, and we didn't bring out our best 11. In my humble opinion, Gignac needed to have started, and Vigon didn't have any business in that lineup. I think there was a plethora of combinations that you could have made to just not have him there. I think Cordova could have played there, and you didn't necessarily have to put Quiñones in, but Ociel was there as well. I think that would have been a stronger lineup versus what we saw.
Yeah, especially because we know that Vigon is very efficient for us off the bench. He gave us the victory goal against Miami and Houston, and has demonstrated over the years that he's a great sub, is able to provide some energy, some spark to find some, chances inside the box and at times finish. And ultimately, him being in the starting lineup from the start, we don't get the same effort and energy because he doesn't really help with the creation of the game, and is more of a guy to just provide spark, right? He's not really a defensive like monster, anticipating and taking balls away from the opponent. So ultimately, it was just a bad choice to bring him into the lineup, especially when you have Brunetta on the bench, who is considered one of our top three players as far as our attackers go. And then you have a guy like Cordova who can play the position. And like you mentioned, have Ociel Herrera. We saw Lainez come back into getting some minutes, which, obviously we had a good discussion about it last week about, him possibly being skipped over in terms of lineup off the bench choices, or, just player choices off the bench on top of players like Quiñones getting some minutes in previous games. But ultimately Lainez gets some minutes. So there was different combinations, like you mentioned, that could have been made. And ultimately it goes back to Paunovic, and therefore to Alfred's point about, now 0 for 2 in titles. How much does Paunovic have to improve upon, and what are some takeaways that we can take back into Liga MX after unsuccessful Leagues Cup, Alfred?
Well, we've said it before. We need our coaches to put our players in positions to succeed. You already talked about it plenty, but putting Vigon in a position, first of all, that's not natural to him, and second of all, that it's such a high responsibility position. It was just too much weight on his shoulders. I ultimately believe that this loss was on Paunovic and the decisions that he took for the starting lineup, and ultimately also for the subs he did. They were late. I hope that it's something that he learns from. Obviously, we wish he would have experimented like this in some, I don't know, Juarez, Querétaro, or some other type of game like that, not in a lose and you're out, elimination game in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, which we talked about also last week in terms of like playing Lainez, that, maybe we gave him the benefit of the doubt that he was making the right choices with the player selection because he didn't want to risk a go home loss. And eventually that happened with some of the other player selections that went on. Dennis, talk to me about the aftermath, about how it looks on our club, especially, with the media roundabouts that we got through many different journalists in Mexico, and specifically Tuca Ferretti also speaking about Gignac should not be coming off the bench. He should be the starter and playing just players out of position. He's just taking a shot at Paunovic.
Well, to that end, amen. Like Gignac has to be the starter. Like I really don't care that he's 38 years old. He's in great shape and he's still producing. Like yes, you can rotate between him and Nico like occasionally in league play, but you're right. Like you guys have mentioned it all episodes so far. He should have been starting that game last week. No questions asked. It's a knockout game. That's where he thrives. Big players show up in big games. That was a big game, even though it didn't seem like it was. A round of 16 knockout tournament game is, especially when it's that far away and it's not really a home game anymore. Would have been really nice to have him out there. Look, we deserve all the flack that we got, but thankfully, other teams in our league helped us out by not getting. We didn't get as much flack as some of the other teams this tournament with some of their losses. At least we kind of put up a decent run and didn't go out in like the worst way possible. But again, it's disappointing. It goes back to what I said earlier. Like hindsight, had we won and been in a good position to play tomorrow night in a semifinal, that kind of stinks, that we don't get that opportunity. But whatever.
Is anybody still going to watch the Leagues Cup?
I'll watch the final if it's Columbus and LA, because that's like the two good teams left.
Yeah, LAFC is balling.
Yeah. And now they have Giroud, even more so.
Yeah. Dennis Bouanga, though, is out here running train on everybody. And, they got the French mob in LA working in their favor, from Hugo Lloris to Dennis Bouanga in MLS league play, getting some assists off the goalkeeper. But ultimately, I have them as favorites. But if it's Columbus, LAFC would be a great matchup. It's a great point you bring there, Alfred, because it sucks that not only any Liga MX team is still in the cup, but ultimately us. I think that it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I know a lot of people, after the elimination, where saying and looking to get past it that it was a Molera Cup and all this and yada yada. But ultimately, for me, and really analyzing and reflecting on where we're at as a club and everything that we're looking to do and continue to aspire for, it's disappointing because there is no Copa Libertadores and we only have CONCACAF, and now we have a tournament that began several years ago, and they changed the format last year with a new edition, and you get eliminated in the same instances last year against your opponent, your city rival, and then this year against a team that you should have beat. And it's just truly disappointing because it's what's in front of us. You have to win this, no matter if it's a Molera Cup. It's hardware. It's club recognition. It's brand recognition. Like we're looking to make a bigger presence in the United States with the TV deals that the team is has put together. The women's team obviously participated in the Summers Cup, and to flop like that and bust out like that, it's just ultimately very disappointing, especially when you have talent. You have a coach that showed you that he has what it takes, at least, in the games that we've seen him play, with a more strategic approach, with a more balanced approach to rotating out players. And he just failed to do that. But I think ultimately it's just a bad image that the club leaves. And for me, I going back to and emphasizing that I know it's a Molera Cup, but ultimately I think it was a great chance to continue to aspire for things off the field with what was happening, and especially in a tournament where it's broadcasted on the best possible way with Apple TV and the best quality, and you see all these different broadcasters or commentators, narrators from different networks, because Apple TV doesn't work specifically with specific people, right? They bring in a collection of different commentators and analysts and narrators to call the games, and I just felt like we missed out on a great opportunity to continue to build everything that we have built so far.
And another small thing, Had we won, we would have gotten a free pass to the round of 16 in CONCACAF in the spring. So stinks to have to play 2 extra games.
Yep. In a cup that doesn't really play in our favor, right? We've had, yeah, exactly. So don't want to get too much into that. I don't know if you want to, Alfred, rant a little bit more about Tuca Ferretti getting on national TV on ESPN Deportes and calling us out, but I think that's a good stopping point.
Well, Dennis said amen, and yeah, I mean, he was right, but shame on him. The last person talking about leaving Gignac out.
True. Yeah. Also true.
That's what I was trying to allude to. So 2019 leaves Gignac on the bench against Rayadas in the CONCACAF final. He leaves Damian Alvarez and Jofre Guerrón, who were probably the 2 best players in that Copa Libertadores run, especially being South American and, understanding the type of game that has to be played in order to come out of those games successful, and leaving them on the bench. It was, and then
Diente Lopez in Mexico for the Club World Cup.
Diente Lopez, Lucas Elarayan riding the bench so many times. So I think it was unfair criticism and really hypocritical on his part. But, the fame is getting to him about like being a personality on TV.
Ya está viejón, está loco, ni sabe lo que está diciendo.
I think had he remembered his mistakes in international championships, he would have kept his mouth shut.
Yeah. No, his coworker should have called him out on it live on TV.
It should have. I absolutely agree with that.
Shout out to Alvaro. Le faltaron.
Yeah. But it's ESPN. What do you expect? Do you think they call people out? They call each other out? No. Not at that institution.
They save that for TUDN.
and even then.
All right, fellas, let's move on here to our second talking point here on the episode is new arrivals and possible more rumors. We got 2 new players for sure, which completes our 4 additions or our 4 current additions that we have. Rafael Guerrero and Osvaldo Rodriguez, a center back and a left back. Mexican young talent in Rafael Guerrero from Cruz Azul. Pachuca debuted him. And then Osvaldo Rodriguez, who is part of the Pachuca León family, coming over to Tigres to give some Angulo some competition, which ultimately, to me, that's, besides Tapia and what we get in the future in the long run as, being most likely the Nahuel replacement, I think that Osvaldo Rodriguez, being 27 years old, coming to compete for a spot against Angulo, gives you a different element to on the field, a more depth attacking wise. To me, that's the signing that has me excited besides Tapia. But thoughts on Rafael Guerrero and Osvaldo Rodriguez? We'll start out with you, Dennis, this time.
To be honest, I haven't caught a lot of their tape, so I don't have any crazy analysis at the moment. But I do like us getting younger. I do like us reinforcing positions of need with Mexican talent. I guess I'm more excited about, the competition that Angulo desperately needed on the left side, especially after, what happened on Tuesday as well. It kind of reinforces that idea that, hey, his spot should not be secure, or the most secure of all the guys on the back line, besides Guido, I guess. So I'm excited about both of them. Hopefully they get a decent amount of run. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, having to integrate those 2 plus Joaquim, which Joaquim had to come in on an emergency basis in that last game against New York, and he did, fine considering the circumstances. So a lot of integration to happen over the next few league games, but I think they're great moves. I think we still could use another midfielder, but I guess we're going to do that in the winter.
Yep. That's the position that it's going to have to be reinforced. And we all know the person that's leaving, and, as his contract is winding down in December. And so we've heard from Pello Maldonado, and it just makes the most logical sense that that's the different position that has to be reinforced. Edgar, Rafael Guerrero, 21 years old, coming over from Cruz Azul on a free transfer. Your thoughts on him and the approach that the club took on signing him? I know I brought it up in the past few days that, to me, it didn't quite make sense, but ultimately I want to hear your opinion about it. And, moving forward, what his role would be with the club.
I mean, to me, it made sense a little bit, but it's not the signing that you would have preferred or would have expected. He's not going to come in and give, one of our center backs that competition the same way we're going to see with Angulo and the other new signing. But he is a good player. He's a very talented player. He has the potential to be a future starter. It's just subject to how bad he wants it. I think it's good that we, found the talent. I still have questions as to why he was released from Cruz Azul. There's not a lot of clarity on that. I do recall the game from, I think it was 2023 Apertura against Tigres. He had a really good game that match. And that's really when I realized who this player was. But there's a couple questions as to how that was handled. I'm not fully convinced on it, but we did get some talent.
He is going to contribute minutes wise to the new rule as far as the domestic, young player move that the league instilled. He provides 60 minutes, 60% of his minutes contribute to the overall minutes of the 1,000 minimum requirement, if I'm not mistaken. So now we have him and Marcelo Flores contributing minutes, and then as well as Chicha when he gets some minutes. I don't know how he's going to get the minutes, but ultimately he also contributes to that factor. Alfred, any thoughts on those guys being signed? And
let's be honest here. Rafael Guerrero is not going to be the guy to give us those minutes. I don't see him sitting out Pizarro. I don't see him sitting out Joaquim, who is a new signing, but I mean, you paid money for him, right? And I mean, I don't know when we're getting Reyes back. Hopefully soon. I mean, obviously, if he does come back, he comes back with the same run that he was having. He was having a great run. So I see it like a difficult position for them to fill with a young Mexican player, especially since, correct me if I'm wrong, Joaquim and Rafael Guerrero are both, I think, left center backs. So maybe they play out in the right, and they could swap out Guido to the left, which is what happened in the New York City FC game when Joaquin came in. Pizarro moved to the left, and Joaquin took the right. So I'm sorry, let me backtrack. They're both right center backs, and we needed left center backs, right? They're both right center backs. So it's just weird. I mean, we needed somebody to fill the position of Samir next to Pizarro, not somebody to fill the position of Pizarro, unless they're thinking in the future, Pizarro's gone, we need players in that position, which it's still weird to me. I mean, it just seems like it's not entirely like it's not a hype signing, if I may say, which is not a bad thing. I mean, obviously in the past, and we recalled about it in our group thread, when we had Hugo Ayala and Torres Nilo and even Juninho signed. I mean, nobody knew these guys, and they came and they made a name for themselves. But we've also had other signings along the way, in these past few years, who have not made a name for themselves. They weren't any important signings, and they left out the door without making anything. So who knows? Obviously, we're hopeful. I'm more hopeful for Osvaldo Rodriguez, like you said. I think he's going to be good competition for Angulo. But I don't know about this other kid.
I guess my only take with it is, I mean, I get it's a free transfer and he's 21 years old and he showed some potential in some games for Cruz Azul. But are we really that bad at the youth level that we can't plug in a guy at that position? Ultimately, yeah, at that age, and knowing that he is not coming in to take somebody's spot. He, like you mentioned, he's not coming in to take Pizarro's spot at the right center back spot. If Pizarro slides over, right, in the worst case that Diego Reyes doesn't come back from great momentum on the run that he was on, and you slide Joaquim in there, right, because he's got to get in shape. He didn't look the best coming out of the back, and that's something that it's still more to develop as he gets more games. He obviously has to get in form, but In the air, he was great. He's athletic. Ultimately he's probably not going to get beat one-on-one in space, and as well as in the air, like I mentioned. But ultimately, you have a youth player that you can plug in if needed in an emergency. And then you go back to the depth chart where you have Purata, who can play there, as well as Eduardo Tercero, who has gotten some minutes at right center back as well as right back, but under Paunovic, he's gotten it at the right center back spot. So I'm just sort of confused in really what the move is for the signing there. Like I said, he might be really special for us, and he might contribute. But to me, it's more of he provides 60% of the minutes towards that. In case Marcelo, because I think Marcelo provides a much lower percentage towards overall minutes. And the other guy, like I mentioned, Diego Chicha Sanchez. I mean, you're talking about playing him above Diego Lainez. You're talking about playing him above Cordova, Bruneta, Ociel, Luis Quiñones.
But at an attacking position, it's an easier risk to take to plug in a youth player.
Yeah, it is. But even then, I just don't see how he gets the minutes. So to me, that's the only reason why this guy would sign. Hey, you plug him in for a game along Guido Pizarro, maybe against an opponent that doesn't really attack as much and has to play back especially with the attack that we have. So that was just my take with it. It's a little bit odd to bring a player like that. So I would have preferred someone a little bit more established, even if he was a few years older, that could have really compete, and more specifically at that left center back spot with what Diego Reyes has, taken over that position. And lastly, fellas, I'm going to leave this one to you, Dennis. I'm going to lead you off on this last part of this segment. Transfer season is coming to a close, and we mentioned the center mid spot being a target for next, season, a few months from now, when Rafael Carioca, which is 98.98% sure that he's not going to get renewed unless, they have a change of heart. But I don't see that happening. And so that's a position of need that we're going to look to bring in a star. So season probably, as far as signings, comes to a close, though it doesn't change the possibility of a player moving on from the club. And there's some players that I just mentioned, like Eduardo Tercero, Purata, who are probably not going to get very minutes if they're going to use this young guy in Rafael Guerrero. But a rumor came out recently over the last few days. It seems like River Plate is doing it again with their whatever finances they have going on, that they're, imagining that they're going to pay, especially when we paid $15 million or so for a guy like Bruneta. What do you make about this rumor of Bruneta going to River Plate?
Are they building a super team? Because they just brought in Bum Maxi Meza for like $2 million. And then they also just brought in Marcos Acuna, who, as we know, plays for Argentina from Sevilla, for also like $2 million today. So if they're expecting to pay $2 million for Juan Bruneta, then don't even have the conversation. Like, you want him with the amount of years left on his contract? 20 million is a conversation starter for me, right? I don't buy it personally. I think it's a crap rumor. Yes, I know that there's this thing floating around that he's having family problems and all this stuff, but I don't buy it. I really don't. He's only been here 8 months. I don't see him leaving now. Maybe if something were to pop up in January, I could see that a little bit more realistically. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, my gut is telling me that he's not going to be departing like now, unless some crazy offer comes in, which then it's like, yes, you take the money and run with it. But River doesn't have that money. We know that. River's trying to scam us, but we should be trying to scam them. So I don't want to hear it about that, to be honest. I think it's crap.
And Muñeco Gallardo just came back, so his wages are not cheap either. Let's play with it, though. Let's play with the scenario a little bit. And what would you guys think? I mean, you said 20 mil. I think it takes a little bit less than that. I think Tigres would be willing to play with a $14 to $15 million dollar offer.
And break
What-
even? You think they want to break even? I think you want to take profit, personally. If he's the best player in the league, then
if they
I
can-
think you
if-
take profit off it.
they're not going to pay the 20 million for it because I don't think that's his value. But I think that what they paid for, I still don't think that was his value either, and that's just because it's a Liga MX transfer, and Tigres offer that money to pay out his clause or his release clause. Let's play with it. Alfred, I mean, is he expendable? Not expendable? He's been here at the club for 8 months. He's had some, good flashes of some good ball, and being a potential, star in our club. What do you
Bring
think
that
of
ball
it?
in my court so that I can be the guy to signal out Bruneta as the one to be kicked
Hey.
out. No.
Also, he's from Boca. He's literally from their youth academy or their youth team. So why would he go against that? Food for thought.
Okay, so just to play along. No, I don't think he's expendable. I mean, in the end, Bruneta, he's got a lot of potential. I think he's got a lot of upside. Despite of the fact that we've seen some great performances, we've also seen some pretty bad ones. I think that his potential is higher. Like he could give us a lot more. So that being said, if he is having these family issues, we've seen this story before from South American players where they hear of an interest of a big team in Argentina, big team in Brazil, big team in Uruguay, wherever they come from, and they're young. Maybe somebody's talking to them in their ears, telling them, "Hey, if you go to River Plate, they jump to the Argentine national team is right there." That could be something where they're sweetening his ear, and he plays along and says, "Oh, I got family issues. I need to get out of here. Please, Tigres, let River sign me." I think that could be the case. So if that happens, y'all can reference me and say I said it first. All right. But I hope not. I hope not, because I think that he's very talented. And I believe that he could give us a lot more.
Edgar, your thoughts on Bruneta being an expendable player or not?
I mean, I think he is. I think you have someone in Sebastián Córdoba who can get the job done. I think he's not had the best 8 months. I think he saw his potential, and I think under our new athletic trainer, there's definitely going to be some room for improvement this season. You're going to see it on the field. I expect it. But if I were in a front office position, I lean kind of more towards Dennis's perspective. I wouldn't let him go for $20 million, and the only person who's going to offer you that ridiculous amount of money is a Saudi team.
Yeah.
Would you loan him out?
No loan.
I think we've had not the best experiences when loaning out foreign players because
Hear me out. I mean, we loan him up 6 months. Say he has an amazing performance, he's still our player. He gets sold to Europe.
The thing is, he came back from Europe to Santos, so he's had the experience. Now, I don't know what his intentions are, right? Like, I'm not sure what goes through his head. To me, if you are Tigres, you have players who you have, on a scouting report, or at least I would like to assume so, and you have targeted players to where if something were to come about, because you have to be prepared for a team to come in and take some of your best players and willing to pay out a clause, especially a guy like Bruneta who has been or was the best player last year in Liga MX all of 2023. So ultimately for me, I'm not saying that Córdoba could give us better or more. I just think you have a player that can take his role if needed, as well as it gives you a chance to sign somebody, in this case, a position that is really of need in that, more middle of the field. You could go for another attacker. You could go for another winger. Like, the possibilities are endless. And, obviously we wouldn't have to be having this conversation. And I think that everybody is content with Bruneta being on our squad. But if the rumor is or has some sort of truth to it, I think that if for the right price, I think it's definitely should be entertained. I don't think that he's untouchable. And, like I would say and consider some of the other players like Marcelo Flores is untouchable because he still has a lot to develop and, is performing. A guy like, Nahuel, who still continues to give you great showings. Gignac obviously is on the way out of his career, so that's not going to happen. Pizarro's on the way out. Carioca's on the way out. So the other guys, I just don't see how we don't have too many untouchables on the squad to begin with because of we don't have really superstars outside of our leaders.
Well, just think of our future then. A year down the line or a year and a half down the line, we don't have Carioca. Possibly we don't have Pizarro, Gignac, or Nahuel anymore. Who then are the most experienced players or who then become the leaders? I mean, you'd be talking about Gorriarán. You'd be talking about potentially Joaquim if he, is the star that we hope he is. And you'd be talking about Bruneta.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, valid point. I just wanted to play with it. Anybody that's tuning in, if they have some thoughts about Juan Francisco Bruneta possibly in the squad, would like to hear about it.
Here's my my NBA trade scenario. You sell him to whoever for 20 to 25. You then take that money and you tell LAFC, here's this money, give us Denny Bouanga. And then you have your Gignac replacement. Done.
Sign me up.
Lou's not going to like that.
Yeah, he might not, but you can't argue Dennis Bouanga's talent and his pace, and I mean he is a superstar, and I think that it would be great to have him. But like I said, I don't think none of this happens. I just wanted to play with this scenario. I brought it up to you guys a few days ago, and I wanted to talk about it on the pod. Moving on, fellas, to our next segment. We return to Liga MX after obviously what we talked about, League's Cup Elimination, possible new players. We have our game against Las Chivas Rayadas de Guadalajara. The USA Chivas, or Chivas USA, led by Kate Cowell, the MVP of the Liga MX last month. We're talking about calling him to the national team, and we don't even know the FIFA rules that he's already played in the Gold Cup for the USA, and we're asking him to be the savior, the new face of the El Tri.
All right, hold up. Not we. Stop saying we.
Mexico City journalists.
There you go.
Fellas, Chivas, what do we think about our return? The news came out today. Obviously, we were scheduled to play a 10 o'clock game here, 9 o'clock game in Mexico and Monterrey. Time has now changed to the 7 o'clock game there, 8 o'clock here. And that's obviously due to America playing, or we were going to be playing at the same time. So that's a television, deal that was made, most likely, obviously, between TV Azteca and Televisa. So that way we can get Tigres at 7, and then you can get the post game with America on national TV. So good games, obviously, scheduled for Saturday. We'll start off with Double Nation. Edgar, what are your thoughts on returning to play against Las Chivas?
Well, thank goodness Liga MX is back because I was getting bored.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
More than anything, I'm excited that we're coming back to one of the more anticipated games of the season. Paunovic gets to face off against the former club that he managed. And it's always a good game against Chivas. It's always a team that, I enjoy those matches. I enjoy beating them. That's the objective, of course. And yeah, I think that if he learned his lesson from Leagues Cup, we're going to see a more competitive lineup. Hopefully Gignac, hopefully Lainez, maybe not as a starter, but definitely getting some minutes there.
Yeah, what are we looking forward to, Alfred, in returning to the league, especially with what we learned from Leagues Cup?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure we stay at top of the tables. We're in the standings. What are we in, like fourth place right now? Because think Rayados moved up, and with this extra game or whatever. But we just need to make sure we stay up there. We had a good start of the season, interrupted by Leagues Cup, and now we're back. We need to make sure that we go right back into the same rhythm that we had. So we need to get a win. It's at home. You have all your players except for Reyes is the only one that I believe is injured. So Paunovic has a full deck of cards. For him to he's now played around the positions, and played around with substitutions and played around with rotations enough, I think, for him to be able to know what players he wants to see on the field. So it's a very good test, both for Paunovic and for our players, for Tigres. Hopefully we come up with a win.
Yeah. I always look forward to Chivas games. I've said it, anytime that we played them in the past when we've recorded. I just love that it gives us a chance to see a good amount of goals because of their approach to play. No matter who the coach is, the players just seem to, be very dynamic, even if they don't, score goals, create chances. So it leaves spaces. I like the spaces that are provided when we play against Chivas. So for me, it's one of the games that I always look forward to because, again, I always expect to see some sort of high-scoring games and more, obviously, on our side. And we did, in our last season under Siboldi that we had against them. So, Dennis, we return to play. Lineup, prediction, thoughts. What are we thinking as far as what Paunovic, obviously Alfred brought it up, that, he's had enough time to experiment. You obviously saw a bunch of the Leagues Cups games in person, and then obviously in that elimination game. What is the projected lineup that Paunovic has now secured in his head?
I would imagine that the new guys don't really get much run. We are back to Nahuel not playing because we're back in league play.
What is that, 2 more games? Or 1 more? 2 more.
I think 2, yeah. So with that in mind, also, random aside, no blue shorts this weekend. Kind of bummed about that. But anyway.
I really like that combo.
I did too. Tapia starts in goal, no question. I mean, Felipe should not even be ever mentioned ever again. Like, goodbye. I mean, personally, if I was Paunovic, I would have Chewy and Aquino be your wing backs. Guido starts. I imagine Joaquim starts, to be honest. He doesn't have the trust in Burata or Tercero as much as he does in Joaquim, because look who came in when Reyes got hurt. It was Joaquim.
And you paid for him.
And you paid for him on 2 days of training, as opposed to guys who've been here for more than 8 months, or more than 2 weeks in Joaquim's case. I imagine the traditional double pivot of Rafa and Gorri, and then I'm curious to see what he does with the front line. I bet Gignac starts. Home game against Chivas. He's honestly pretty well rested. Looking back on it, he really didn't get a ton of minutes in Leagues Cup, if you think about it. So I imagine he will start. Now we have to deal with the foreigner rule again. So I'd like to see, honestly, I'd like to see Lainez, Cordova, and Flores. That would be a really fun 3 below him. I imagine that doesn't happen. It's probably going to be Quiñones and Bruneta. And
no, don't say that, man.
Something like that.
I don't think Quiñones is considered a starter anymore, especially with what we saw throughout the run and the substitutions that happened against NYFC. And so I'm hopeful now that he's not a starter. And I
also saw a thing that he may be on his way out. There's the rumor of him going back to Atlético Nacional, going around again. At least what I saw today. So maybe.
Double O Nation, get on it.
Please confirm if that's true.
Okay, I'm gonna make some points about the lineup that you threw out there. So we didn't see Chuy Garza in Leagues Cup because he apparently was hurt. No report came out of it from the club. I think it was just sort of like very lightly mentioned by Vladimir Garcia. And we saw him at the games that we were at. He was dressed in, just pants and the polo. So he was definitely not even on the bench to be available. So that's the.
Well, no. He played the first game, remember? Because Aquino was out suspension.
Correct. Take that back. But we didn't see him the rest of the time due to a possible injury that we didn't get information on. What is interesting to me, though, is going back to our previous segment speaking about Juan Bruneta, leaving him on the bench with your selection and going with Cordova in the middle and Lainez and Marcelo Flores. Alfred, what are you thinking for lineups?
Well, let me defend Dennis. He said that would be fun to see. He didn't say that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to go with Bruneta. I think it's a high stakes game. Obviously, it's on national TV. It's against one of the populars. It's against your former team, in this case, Paunovic.
Right. Good point.
So I think Edgar mentioned it. You want to go with your best lineup, and I think in Paunovic's head, his best lineup is with Bruneta down the middle, Cordova down the left, and then we still have to see on the right, Lainez or Marcelo. I go with Lainez.
Yeah, the thing is that makes it complicated is that he's had so many different variations, right? And against Pachuca, he started Cordova on the right side and Marcelo on. I'm sorry, not Marcelo.
Yeah, you can switch it up, but I think he'll go with Bruneta down the middle. Yeah. I mean, when he has chosen to play both Bruneta and Cordova, it's always Bruneta down the middle, and Cordova is the one that's right. Interchanged on either wing.
Edgar, what do you? Can we make any assumptions based on the lineup selection? Right. Dennis brought up a point that Gignac obviously starts because he didn't get, a ton of minutes in Leagues Cup. If Nico Ibanez starts, what do you make of that, moving forward as far as Gignac's role on the team?
If we see Ibanez in the starting lineup, that tells me that Paunovic is officially trying to phase out Gignac, which, in my humble opinion, is a mistake. Like Dennis mentioned, it doesn't matter that he's 38. The guy could be 45. But if he's giving you the better results, if he's been more consistent than anybody else in that position, he has to start.
And we have both of them having 2 goals so far during league play. So I think, again, strategic about it. Maybe don't bring in Gignac if he doesn't start 15 minutes to go. Bring him at the 60th minute mark, whether that's to play with 2 9s and then eventually, choose a different player to play behind whoever you subbed up or whoever you start. So I think that's just where I would like to see. So it'll be interesting. I think that, we'll get this game will give us a better idea what he thinks moving forward, because now the games matter more. Like you said, Alfred, we got to make sure that we stay at top of the league in terms of results. We have 10 points so far. Monterrey has the lead with obviously 1 game played already ahead of most of the teams at the top of the table. So,
and we have this is a tricky little 3-game stretch with this, Pumas, and San Luis. And then we have a little bit of an easier stretch with Querétaro and León and Juárez, I think. So this is kind of not a season defining stretch, but this is like good competition in our league. Like, let's get it together sort of stretch.
I'll mention one other thing regarding the Gignac, Nico. We haven't seen him much coming in as a sub, but the times we've seen Gignac come in as a sub, it hasn't worked out. It's usually been trying to get Gignac in to see if he's the hero somehow. And I think the only time that we actually saw that was in the 2019, CONCACAF Champions against Rayados, where he did come in a sub and he actually, scored. But aside from that, it's better off to start with Gignac. And if 60 minutes in, things didn't pan out with Gignac, you bring in Nico. And we have seen Nico come off the bench and give us results.
And I think from a strategy aspect, starting Gignac gives you a better advantage because you're able to play a certain way during the first half to feel out the opponent and, with the players that you line up behind them and play a certain way. And then if it's not working, you bring someone more energetic, a different type of role like Ibanez, and has demonstrated that he has been successful or more successful than what you made at your point about, the roles being reversed. So I think that, to me, starting Ibanez, you forfeit a type of play immediately from the get-go, which obviously sometimes it may benefit us. But I think that as you continue, at least in my opinion, is you play Gignac and you do sub him out, because there are some games that he doesn't find connections with the buildup. We saw it in the Pachuca game. He had one chance that he should have put away and he didn't. And, in the second half, with the Pachuca playing, with high intensity and having a good game, like we talked about when we were analyzing that game, Nico Ibanez came in and disrupted play on the last third of the field. They anticipated a pass, created a chance, and Marcelo finished off with the scoring opportunity. So to me, it's just a lot. It favors you more to play with Gignac from the get-go, because you play a better build-up, in my opinion, where you're able to connect more passes, and he's a little bit more involved in the build-up than when Ibanez plays and you launch a ball into space, either wing, and force him to take on a defender, which he doesn't really conduct the ball or like dribble the ball as good as, or holds possession like Gignac does. So I think, to me, that's just the point that I would make in terms of who to start, the rest of the season. But I think ultimately, like I said, it'll be a good indication to see how he lines up, especially with now Lainez coming back and know that he's healthy. You got some minutes out of and good flashes out of Ociel. Marcelo had some good flashes. Obviously, you have Bruneta and Cordova. Cordova playing in a different role in Liga MX and Leagues Cup. So I think we'll continue to see some sort of rotations, but I think a little bit less dramatic in terms of bringing, maybe 3 subs off the bench in one rip in one window. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a pace that we're going to like to see. And being at home, national game, televised, let's seek out a positive result. So we'll lead into that. Predictions, Edgar, what are you thinking for a result for game against Chivas?
So I think we're going to be coming back strong. I know that a lot of the players weren't content with the early exit in Leagues Cup. I know that Bonovic has been hopefully taking his notes and preparing for this match. I think we're going to come out 3-1.
I like that. Dennis?
2-0. Chivas hasn't played in like 3 weeks since they got bounced so early in Leagues Cup. So they're going to have to find a rhythm again, and we're in more of a rhythm. And I expect our players to be fired up after, what happened last week, and to be back at home, because they haven't played at home in about a month. So,
and we usually have a good showing against Chivas. Not that Volcan needs any good showings. We have good showings overall, but I think Chivas does draw out some fans at that stadium as well. So, Alfred?
3-0. I think Tapia is going to have a great game. And I believe that our wingers are also going to make a difference with that defensive back of Chivas. So 3-0.
I'm going 2-0. I'll mimic what Dennis says. I think that we do get our chances. I think it'll be an exciting game, and I think Tapia gets to start as well. And he has a shutout for us, and good positive note to be at home. So let's see what happens. Game is again rescheduled to 8:00 here in the States, at least Central Time, and 7:00 Mexico time. So make sure you're on the lookout for that if you're tuning in or listening to this episode before the match on Saturday.
Where can we watch it?
Not CBS, apparently.
It got moved.
Apparently, it got moved. We'll have to see about that. But Estrella TV has it, and Fox Deportes. So.
Somebody heard you break out the news, bro, and the deal wasn't in place, so now you screwed up, negotiations.
That's fine.
I think it was fake news. That's why we should trust Double Elimination over here.
Not Triple Elimination?
No.
So Estrella TV, we'll get Luis Omar Tapia back, Pello Maldonado analyzing and commentating on the game.
Are we sure on Luis Omar Tapia? I heard he was signed by another network or something.
Dude, he's getting a ton of gigs right now.
Yeah, but it's TNT in Mexico. And again, right. they don't work as exclusive. They bring in I'm going to call it like subcontracted out. So, I mean, from what we heard prior to him getting on TNT, but I mean, you might be right. Like, he might not come back. If so, Pello Maldonado is going to get the games, and they're just going to have to bring in somebody to help him out to analyze and be the color guy.
Right. Yeah.
But ultimately, good for Pello, regardless of scenario. If we get Tapia, I like him as, calling our games. He brings a good energy. He obviously is well knowledgeable on the game. He's not going to give you stupid takes on, what's going to happen. He also has good analytical perspective besides just doing play-by-play. But we'll see. Good point to see if he does get the or continues the role, since he signed on to TNT Mexico for Champions League, if I'm not mistaken.
And Premier League, I think.
That makes sense. Last part, fellas. We're almost there. We're almost there to close out the night. Liga MX Femenil. Amazonas Tigres Femenil obviously obtained a victory on Saturday night, 3-1, with a great performance by Tembi, which she's had a great season thus far. Probably has been our best player as far as all the games that we played in Liga MX Femenil, as well as the Summer Cup. But I want to start off with something that now has become a trend in Tigres Femenil games. Saturday night, no men's game prior to that, or leading up until this upcoming Saturday that we have against Chivas as they return. Good time. I mean, it's a 9:00 game, right? Like 9 p.m. It was on a Saturday night. Tickets weren't that expensive. They typically are not that expensive, and the stadium was empty, and has now become a trend with Tigres Femenil games. What do we think about that part before we analyze the game?
In my humble opinion, it is a problem. I know that women's soccer in Mexico is not as popular as it is here in the States, perhaps, but when you are the biggest women's club in the country, your stadium shouldn't look like that. When your fans pride themselves in being the most passionate fans in all of Mexico for both sides, your stadium shouldn't look like that. And I think that there is one root cause, and it's the person in the manager's chair. I think that until we get past those inconsistencies and until this team starts delivering upon the expectations that they're more than capable of, we're not going to get anywhere.
Your dog agrees. It's fine.
Yeah.
Mila should be gone. That's what was said there.
It just sucks. It just sucks because he Edgar brings up a great point. Like, right, we're the best club in Mexico. Our fan base takes pride in like being the most passionate, and it's not like we haven't had like great attendance in the past. We've had, the first, I'd say maybe the first 2 years from league was founded in late 2016, early 2017. So maybe 2019 is a better indication, right before the pandemic, and maybe a little bit after the pandemic. We had at least 10,000 people in that stadium, and that was consistent, for each home game. Now, in the last few games and last season, there was times where we had 3,000 people in that stands, and I don't know the official attendance for this past match, but I can assume that it was close to that, if not less. And obviously, Edgar points it out. Mila Martinez. I'm not sure if you guys have anything else to add for that.
I do. I'm gonna make some enemies here. Hopefully, get some blocks there on Twitter. I'm gonna call them out. Libres y Locos only shows up in clásicos and in finals for Tigres Femenil. Shouldn't be that way.
Yep, I can see that. Hopefully, you don't get blocked, Alfred. I mean, you're not lying. But the thing is, like, there is maybe not necessarily Libres y Locos for the men's side, or I'm sorry, for women's side, but they should be there as well. But, what about like the families, right? Like, the tickets are more affordable. There's a lot of like girls aspiring now with the popularity of the league that it has taken to, possibly look up to be a player in the future. And it's a Saturday, right? It's an outing, right? It's a social outing. It's again, maybe to me, I guess I could be wrong on that end. because I can't put myself in people's shoes, but it seemed affordable from the ticket prices that I saw, and they're generally that price. And I think they were lower even this time because obviously numbers have been low. And I think that somebody brought it up on my timeline. We went from, the club pushing, abonos or, season ticket renewals or the selling of season tickets to now they push general attendance tickets for matches at Volcan. So I just think that there has to be something. There's a disconnect, obviously, from the club and the team. Maybe, people just enjoy watching from home because it's not as exciting anymore. And obviously there's many factors that contribute to that. One of them obviously being pointed out that the coaching. We also know that the league and the other clubs have caught up in terms of like signing players and, being better on the field. Dennis, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add on to that.
No, you took away my ticket prices rant. So there's no excuse. Like, it's cheap. I'm sorry. It is. Get out there.
Let me ask, has the front office ever done any type of promotions where it's like, girls come in free or something like that? I remember back in the 90s, that used to be a thing. Like, where if you came in with a child, like, you could, you buy yourself your ticket and your child came free, something like that. So, I mean, obviously, I think they got used to the high attendance rate that we had from the get-go when the Liga MX Femenil started, which was kind of carrying over from all the success that the Varonil was having and just carried over to the Femenil. And then they built up, upon it themselves with their success and with their amazing play that, they used to have. But now that that's kind of lost, maybe they should bring in some of these promotions, bring in people.
The scheduling's also so bad, and it keeps, like, we've talked about it before, like, they change it randomly without saying anything until, like, the last second. It's like, well, what else are you supposed to do? And also, you got to market it better. Like, I know that's an easy, like, cop-out answer, but, like, clearly you got to do something on that front as well if you want people to get to the stadium.
And going to Alfred's point, like, all the other teams do that. And they advertise, buy, one ticket, get two for free, or buy two, get two for free, bring a kid to the game to help out. And maybe they're not as successful. But ultimately, something has got to be done because, going to the scheduling point that you made, Dennis, like on a Monday when, there's university classes going on and they play on their traditional schedule, the time switch, I can see how that becomes a difficult play for them to like get people in the stands. But this game was already scheduled ahead of time. It's a Saturday. It's a weekend. There hasn't been Liga MX in a while for the men's side. So I just feel like there should have been more people in the stands. And it's upsetting, right? Like to watch a game with such low attendance and, all the hype that Tigres Femenil has behind the club and, ultimately what the players provide on the field as well. It just sucks watching on TV knowing that there should be a lot more people in the stands. Shout out to Aaron Flores from Tigres and NYC. Hey guys, glad to meet you all in person during Tigres week. It's a pleasure, my friend. I'm glad that, your predictions came to life to bring Tigres to the Big Apple. Unfortunately, we didn't get the result that we wanted, but it was great to meet you. And, I talked about it to you in person. I love what you got going on over there with everything that, you do to bring people together to have watch parties in the Big Apple to watch our club on the men's side and the women's side. So shout out to you, my friend, and wish you success as you prepare the rest of the season and scheduling more hangouts and watch parties for our club. Anything else to add as far as the fans? 3-1 victory, obviously, on the pitch, it was great. And we move in terms of the table. I'm not sure that I think we're in fourth place with a game behind.
We are behind a game. I know first and second have played 5 games. Pumas has played 6. We are short 1 game, but we're still up there. We're in third place.
Yep. We are in third place with 12 points and a game in hand. We have 4 matches. Pachuca is leading the table with 5 games. Monterrey 5 games. Pumas has 6 games, and they're in fourth place. So we haven't lost a game And, like I said, we have some players in good form. We're getting Jenny Hermoso back after her Olympic run. And we'll see how that goes. She was interviewed after her first day in practice, and she's obviously excited for, what's ahead, and she's looking to win championships in hardware at Tigres Femenil. So we'll see how she contributes on the pitch, and we'll see where Mila and her decide where she's going to play on the field, whether she's going to play on the, attacking mid-roll, which turns into a center defensive mid-roll coming out of the back and behind midfield, or we take her on and place her at the 9 spot where, we've discussed in our previous pods that, Alison Gonzalez hasn't had the it factor to be the starter. Mayor continues to get a majority of the minutes at that, either 9 or 10 position and, not as successful. And you can tell with the play that's happening on the field. So we'll see where Jenny Hermoso fits into that role with Mila Martinez moving forward. Thoughts on Jenny coming back?
Yeah, I actually think that you're right. She's gonna pop right back into the lineup. Based on what I've seen over the last few games at Tigres Femenil, I don't know if you guys can agree with me. Mila has been trying different people at that, position behind the 9. At some moment, we saw Ovalle playing behind the 9. We've obviously seen, Alison Gonzalez back there. Sometimes she's played Mari Carmen Reyes. This last game, she played Thembi behind the 9, right? So she's like trying, different players in that position. Why? Because Jenny Hermoso is not there, right? So I think Jenny Hermoso comes back and she fits right into that position. Hopefully, though, maybe with Thembi's performance, she might have a change of mind. And maybe she puts Jenny Hermoso at the 9 position and Thembi behind her. Because I thought that was great. I thought Thembi did great.
And that gives you the option to play Ovalle and Jocelyn Montoya at the wings or the winger spot. So that would be
football gods. Hear our prayers.
Yeah.
Will we see it though? That's the $1 million question.
Will Mayor be finally seated?
Not with Mila, bro. Not with Mila. She doesn't have the guts to do it.
Dude, and the thing is, she doesn't have to be like bench and relegated. Like, she can still contribute, but it just has to be different. Like, she disappears for majority parts of the game, and we like I said in the past, like we talk about a freno de mano, a handbrake that people call Pizarro. Mayor does the same thing, if not worse, for the feminine side, and so gotta figure that out. I think that it's the beginning of the season, 4 matches played, like we talked about. We weren't successful in getting the back-to-back last season, which we dominated the entire season leading up to the playoffs, where we just dropped the ball in terms of our play. So we got to bounce back. Speaking about Jenny Hermoso, I saw a stat recently, like she had a tremendous amount of contribution at Pachuca with less talented players, and we haven't been able to like get her to produce with more talented players on our squad. So Mila has a tough task, and she's got to figure it out. She's got to see who is going to be on board with what she's, looking to do. We got to provide more intensity. We got to be quicker in moving the ball, and she can't be afraid of benching some players when they're not in good form. And, we know the 4 or 5 players that have to be on the field, 6 players maybe, but ultimately I think everybody else also can be swapped out in a rotation. So maybe she needs to take a little bit of a Panovich soul to provide some rotations there.
And we have an important match coming up.
Yeah. I just want to quickly, before we talk about that, Belen Cruz in that game became the highest or 259th game appearance, which makes her now the highest amount of games played for Tigres Femenil. She passed up Liliana Mercado with 258, and now she's no longer at the club. So obviously she's going to hold that spot for, until she obviously moves on from our squad, because Ovalle is trailing her at 249. And I think Ovalle is going to take that on, especially with her age and, her remaining games most likely at the club. And I think
she doesn't leave.
Yeah, obviously. So, it'll be interesting, but, Belen Cruz became the player with the most games for Tigres Femenil. She's been around since the beginning. So shout out to her. She's getting some trust by Mila Martinez and getting some minutes, off the bench. So we'll see if she continues to add more to that record, I guess. But Alfred, yep, you brought up a point. Champions League begins this Thursday at El Volcán against our rival in our Clásico 38th of the Liga MX Femenil against Rayadas. What do we make of this match as we begin the first edition of the CONCACAF Women's Champions League Cup?
A must-win match for sure.
Must win, especially after the Summer Cup.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we just got done talking about how this is the biggest club in Mexican football. We failed. Well, most Mexican teams failed, but that's not the point. Tremendously at the Summer Cup. And so now with this tournament that has a lot more prestige and a lot more writing on it, it is critical that we win, especially against Rayadas.
Yeah, especially because, they're at the top of the table. They're the defending champs. Everything that we just talked about on our end as far as lineups and what we want to see on the field with the player selection. So you gotta go into that game. It's a must-win game, like you said, and take ownership that we have to battle for some hardware. Now you have a chance at 2. You had a chance at 3 during the Summer Cup, which you failed. But now you have CONCACAF, and then you have the league as well domestically. So must win for Tigres Femenil.
Not to mention that this tournament is going to lead to the future Women's Club World Cup. So it's extra important just on that alone.
Yeah, and we know how Rayados as an organization brags about that. So we got to take the lead on the women's side with the first edition.
Realistically speaking, though, we saw it in the Summers Cup. I mean, do we really have a chance at this cup? I think not. So the few games that maybe will match up against our rivals, we got to take them. So Rayados, forget who else is on our group. I think Gotham FC.
It's gonna be a tough game.
Yeah, but
They're the defending champs in the NWSL.
yeah. So we're not gonna match up easily against some of these MLS rivals. So definitely, I mean, the Rayadas game's got to be a win. If we're not gonna win that group, maybe we can come in second. I don't know.
Yeah, do we know the qualification for that? Like out of the group stage? If not, I'll look it up. Okay, I'll look it up.
Not entirely, but I mean, to your point, Alfred. I mean, I know we've
There's 2 groups.
Yeah, there's only 2 groups, and so to Alfred's point, though, I think we have a better shot than at Summer Cup because it's only 2 groups, and because this tournament does incorporate Canadian teams and Central American teams. Alajuelense is the other team in our group, and Frasers is the Canadian team also in our group.
Yeah, so we got to win against Rayados and Alajuelense, I assume. I've never seen Costa Rican, feminine play, but I assume we got to win that.
Everybody plays a home and away match, and then the group leaders, the top 2, move on to the semis automatically.
Okay. So there you go.
So something goes our way, we could have a chance because it's not a ton of games that you have to play in order to get to the last stages. It's just you got to take care of your group play. And, maybe not against Gotham, you're the favorites. And even against Rayadas, you might not be the favorites because they are the defending champs, like I mentioned. But they're more winnable games because, or it's a more winnable series because they're in your league. And you've proven to beat them, loads of times. Anything to add, fellas? We've concluded basically our pod episode. I know we have usually our segment of From the Vault moments. I don't think we have any From the Vault moments that I came across recently for Tigres or Tigres Femenil.
Not really.
It was an odd week, man. It was a really odd week after the elimination against NYFC. It was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow with that elimination, and then no Liga MX leading up to that weekend, and then now we got to wait till this following weekend to get Liga MX. Luckily the Amazonas were on TV, and we were able to watch as they continue their season. But lots to look forward moving towards both leagues on the men's and the women's side. Gotta aspire to get some hardware. going back 0 for 2 on Panovic's side, and 0 for 1 so far. Mila Martinez out of the 3 possible cups that she can obtain.
I can't lie. As soon as we got up super big in the first half the other night, I flipped over and hate watched America losing penalties the other night. So I only
Don't
caught
worry,
the
the
first,
second half wasn't that good.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the hate watching a lot more, personally.
Yeah, especially because everybody made a big deal when we got eliminated, and then everybody just like, oh, they're gonna win it. Like nobody has a chance of beating them, and then flops.
No, or they were saying, "Oh, America's the only one that stands up for our league." Mm-mm.
Tronaldo out here with all the endless gifs after Lichnowsky missed too, which I was very much a fan of.
I just wanted to make sure our former player got his attention on a Tigres specific account.
The guy is always fishing for the attention, so I hope he's happy with it now.
Yeah.
He got everybody's attention.
Absolutely. Fellas, it's been a pleasure. Everybody who tuned in from the get-go and eventually tuned in, thank you so much for watching our episode tonight live on YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter. I love saying that because I'm still not on board with X. And if you are going to listen to this in just the audio version, thank you for listening to our pod and our content. We have lots to talk about as we resume league play on both teams, on the men's and the women's, and we look forward to hopefully be on the more successful side of these games, so we can have great energy to provide for you guys and great content as we push for some more hardware. We're going for the 9th title on the men's side and then the 7th title on the women's side. So lots more to come. Fellas, any last words?
Thank you guys for listening to us, and follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, look at the little banner or the little ticker down here if you're watching live. Follow us on all those platforms and follow everybody here on our socials.
Yeah, and next time we'll have an official sponsor besides Texas Roadhouse. Dennis, you can't lack on that end, bro.
Bro, I'm down with the unofficial though. Like, honestly, if we ever got a sponsorship from Texas Roadhouse, the sponsorship just needs to be they like send us a couple batches of rolls to like make it home every month. I would take that in a heartbeat.
If you haven't checked out Texas Roadhouse, you got to check it out, and mainly just for the rolls.
And the cinnamon butter or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, that stuff is good. But if they do not want to sponsor us, I think we need to get sponsored by Costco. Dennis and his snacks usually come from Costco, so
yeah, that's true. Shout out Unreal Barge.
Knows anybody at Costco who would like to sponsor this show? We can have a snack segment at the end.
Yes,
absolutely.
And you can send us all those snacks and unlimited pizzas and chicken bakes. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
All right. Till next time, everybody. Thank you.
Ciao.
Here, guys.